2 targets for his 3rd gold in men's skeet. Whoa. And there it is. Vinny Hancock, the 32-year-old native of Eatonton, Georgia, is back on top here in Tokyo.
What does it take to overcome mental mistakes and adversity?
Barely snuck into this final with that 122.
And still shoot at the highest possible levels.
And now he's walking away with gold.
Vincent Hancock just took gold in the Tokyo Olympics, as he did in the 2008 and 2012 Olympic Games.
A record 3rd Olympic gold in men's skeet.
He's the only person in history to win gold multiple times in this discipline, which is arguably the most complex and challenging of all the Olympic shooting sports.
He's an incredible shooter to watch. How fast he moves, how smooth he is.
But even though Hancock has been dominant in the sport since his teens, he's had to deal with some major setbacks on his journey to Tokyo gold. The first was a disappointing showing in the 2016 Olympics in Rio, where he finished in 15th place and failed to make the finals.
Defending champion Vincent Hancock had been knocked out in the qualifiers, so there would be a new face on top of the podium.
And in Tokyo, he flirted with disaster in the qualifying rounds after dropping 3 targets, which landed him in a cutthroat 6-way shoot-off, where any miss meant you were packing your bags and headed home.
Barely snuck into this final with that 122.
I'm your host, John Snow, the shooting editor. We're going to take a look at how he was able to move past these challenges, mentally and physically. And no doubt those lessons are ones that any shooter can use to become better. First off, obviously, I want to say congratulations, dude.
Thank you.
What you did was fabulous, and you did it in kind of over a career that's still going, but one that's had, ups and then downs and then back up. You won gold in which other Olympics?
In 2008 and 2012.
Okay. And then in 2016, what happened?
It was, that's the one event in the last 6 years that I didn't make the top 6 in. It's, everything was going well. I was doing everything that I needed to be doing, but I had a little voice in the back of my head for, probably 8 or 9 months prior to that games that this one wasn't it just wasn't going to be mine. And it's that little bit of self-doubt, and there's no reason for it. I don't really know why. I kind of was telling myself afterwards as I was looking back retrospectively and thinking that, maybe it was just God telling me, hey, be prepared because this one isn't going to be you. You need to understand and you need to learn to accept not winning. Learn to accept defeat. And then what are you going to do from there? You can't just get mad at it. You can't just do like you did when you were a teenager and get really, really ticked off and then go back out and try harder. You're already trying everything that you can. This is your life. This is what you put every bit of effort into every day. So learn to accept the fact that you are not going to win every single time.
Right. But you took some time off though, right?
Afterwards.
Right.
That was kind of the thing that I understood, that you keep pushing yourself. So, every day, every week, every month, every year, eventually there comes a point where your body and your mind are out of sync. And I think that was one of the other things that was there with me in Rio, is just that I had been running so hard for so many years without really taking a true break that I was just tired. I wasn't up for the challenge at that one particular point in time. And of course, my game, that's what people talk to you about. That's what people remember. They only remember as you didn't win the Rio Olympics. Why? Well, I won everything else that pretty much that I could, but that was just the one thing I didn't.
Well, that's a lot of pressure to feel, to experience from other people.
Back then too, because it was my first one out of the Army. I put a lot of pressure on myself to make sure that I could do it and that I could stay on top. The comments had been made and I'm sure had been made since then, that the Army is the reason that I did it. Negating the fact that I was already a world champion and a world record holder before I went into the military. Those things have been said, like, no, he's never going to win another Olympic medal outside of the Army. I was putting a lot of pressure on myself I didn't have that job security anymore being in the military. I had to go out and do my own thing and get sponsors. But it's the life of a professional athlete. That's what every professional athlete has to do. They have to perform. And it's the ones that can rise to the occasion and meet those expectations that are the ones that we remember. And it's not that I'm doing this to remember. I'm doing it because I love it. But at the same time, I need to provide for my family too. So I kind of need to make sure that these companies that I'm working with and for are also getting what they deserve.
What did you do for that year off?
So I took 7 months off after the games, and I just stayed home. I stayed home to be with my kids, to be with my wife, to kind of understand what I needed to do to get better as a person, as a husband, as a father. And that allowed me the time to kind of just decompress from having to be a competitive athlete 24/7. Did
you know you were going to get back into the game?
Oh, yeah. I knew that I was going to come back into it. I knew I was going to come back and go for 2020. I just needed to take a little bit of a break from all the travel, from all the hustle and bustle, everything that was going on. Just needed a little bit of time away. And so it allowed me to go through and have a great year with my family in 2017, and allowed me to have a great competitive year in 2018, another good competitive year in 2019, and then obviously making the Olympic team the beginning of 2020. And then here comes COVID.
The 2020 Summer Olympics, now the latest major sports cancellation caused by the global COVID-19 pandemic. Some 11,000 athletes from more than 200 countries were expected to compete in the Summer Games, but the global pandemic halted training and would likely make travel in the coming months virtually impossible.
And I was ready to go and do my best, but at the same time, I was kind of feeling that almost that same lack of drive. Right as I made that Olympic team, I was struggling a little bit here and there.
Well, COVID really threw a monkey wrench into everything, right?
Well, it did, but it actually ended up being the best thing that I could have ever asked for. It allowed me to take another break because I had run really hard for 2.5 years trying to win everything that I possibly could. So when COVID hit, it didn't touch my gun for 9 months. And I was out coaching. I was doing a bunch of stuff around the sport and around the discipline in particular. But that when I came back, I was completely reinvigorated again.
So what does that tell you about the training regimen then that was expected? Maybe that's not the way to go.
I mean, it is. It's the only way you can do it and stay on top is by training the amount. And I don't train as much as I used to. I still train a number of days, 5 to 6 days a week, but I'm not, the numbers of rounds that I'm shooting are anywhere from 150 to 200 targets a day. So it's not like it's an incredible amount. It's a few hours out the range every day. But the big thing is I've been doing this now for over 20 years. So it all adds up. We only have a certain number of competitions every year, and you have to win those things. So there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of things. But again, that's what goes into being a professional athlete.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the specific things that you were kind of focused on and working on in the build up to 2020. Just technically, what were some of the things that were a priority for you in your training?
It's mostly just keeping things simple. I know how to move to a target. And I learned that a long time ago. I learned how to mount. I learned all the basics. And what happens is, though, that too many people try to get wrapped up in learning an extensive amount more than that. And they all tried to say, okay, I got the physical side, so let me figure out the mental side. For me, that's completely backwards. By focusing on the mental aspect of things, you start losing your ability to focus on what it takes to actually break a target. You're thinking, okay, I need to be mentally stronger. You're thinking about all these things that are going on in your head, which if you just do what you need to do mechanically speaking, you're going to break every single target. So why not use the mechanics as your mental game? Don't think about how, all these other crazy things going on in your head that you have to focus on. No, just think about the process. It's very, very simple. It's not hard. So if you're trying to think about 100 different things, you're doing it wrong. My thing is when I step on the station, I have a process and a mental checklist that has become my entire mental game. If I can knock each one of those check marks off, or each one of those keys in the process, and I can put a check mark by them, then I know that I'm going to hit every single target that I go and shoot, as long as I can do each one of those things.
What's on your checklist?
It's honestly pretty simple. For example, you're stepping into the station and getting your natural point of alignment where it needs to be. You find your break point where you want to break the target. You get your hold point. You move your eyes to your eye hold point. You let them settle. And then you tell yourself a key. Like for me, it's always making sure that I'm getting out in front of the target at the beginning, and then I'm staying in front of the target.
Is that literally the phrase that you say to yourself? What's the last thing you say to yourself before you call for the bird?
Typically, I mean, it changes, and it's going to be different from person to person. But for me, I tell myself to hold it. I tell myself to hold the target, because if I can get the gun on my shoulder and I'm matching the speed of the target, I see it clearly, and I hold it for just a split second. It feels like a full second sometimes, especially when you're in that nervous mode and you got the adrenaline running and everything. But if I can hold the target and really truly see it clearly, and then pull the trigger and see it break, then I'm literally never going to miss. It's just making sure that you can accomplish those simple tasks.
Mm-hmm. And when you put your shells in the gun, do you align them the same way each time? Like, is everything, or you just drop them in?
Just drop them in and go. Not overthinking things. That's just adding to a process that's not going to help you, or adding a piece to the process that's not going to help you. It doesn't matter how your shells go in. No, that's not it. But I'm making sure that my finger's in the same spot on the forearm, of course, because everything needs to be the same. You kind of learn how things work over the years for you. Then you have yourself a little routine. And mine is making sure my hands are clean, they're not too sweaty. I got a good grip on the gun. My hands are in the right spot on the gun as well, that I'm holding it, and my posture is correct. Again, there's a whole different checklist, but that becomes a lot more subconscious than the hold point, break point, eye hold point, and then making sure you're moving to the target correctly.
The intenseness of how he can look at that target, it's almost like he breaks it by looking at it.
So now his fourth Olympics. He had to work hard, Sherry, down the stretch to get into this final. He ran off in 100 straight to start. He made his 110.
So let's talk about kind of the journey through 2020, the 2020 Olympics. In the early rounds, you ended up dropping a few targets and ended up in it was a 6-way shoot off.
So I was 100 straight going into my last round, again leading. And then I got through the high house on station 4, and I turned around for the low house. The wind had picked up pretty significantly comparatively, and the low house was getting really low. It was already set a little low throughout the day, and then the wind was pushing it even lower. So without even really knowing, I was like, okay, I need to get down to this target. When I said that to myself, I just subconsciously got more aggressive in my posture. And what happened was that started blocking the gun from getting up in my shoulder the way it should be. My head was a little bit lower, so I was pushing the gun down. There was a lot of things that compounded that I didn't realize I was doing until it was too late.
Missed 3 of his final 8.
He got tight, the qualification round, and he just got tight. And that's not Vinny Hancock. That's not how he shoots.
So I missed low 4 single. I went to low 5, and I'm like, all right, you got to get down to this target. So I think I got even more aggressive. Again, blocked the gun from getting up in my shoulder, from fitting me properly. And then I missed the low 5 single. So two targets back to back. And then I go through the rest of the round, and I get to station 8, and I'm like, okay, I just need to hit these targets, and I'm sure that I'm in. I may have a shoot off, but okay. So I shoot the high house really well and turn around for the low house, my very last target. And on the next field over, where the low house is coming from, they're getting ready for the women's final. And there's loudspeakers going, there's music playing, there's people yelling, they're throwing random targets out of the houses. So there's nothing that you can really account for, because typically, if I know somebody's shooting on the next field, I'll wait for them to shoot the target. That way I know nothing is going to come out of the house and distract my eye or my ears. So I get set up, and right as I call for the low house target, I hear something. I don't know what it is. It sounds like a machine going off, but I hear something on the other field. So my eyes jumped up, and the target came out again low, and it stayed really low, and my barrel just stayed up with my eyes, and I shot right over top of it. To go from 100 straight to I shot a 22 out of 25 my last round.
That must have been extremely frustrating.
Oh, it was very frustrating. I came off the field, and I was very, very unhappy.
I can tell you right now, because I know Vinny Hancock, he is not happy with himself or his performance. He just got tight. He didn't move as well as he normally does.
It's done and over with now. But, I was just frustrated with myself for not doing better. And I sat down under the cover on the back side of the field, and one of the assistant coaches was back there, and I told him, I was like, I just gave away the Olympics in one round. I literally just lost the Olympics in one round. And he's like, no. You have a shoot off. And I'm no way. 122s are shooting off. And he's like, yes, it's going to be a big shoot off, but you got a chance. So I'm like, okay, well, there's 6 of us tied for 3 spots. And at that point in time, I had no idea what I was doing wrong. But then thankfully I had about 5 or 10 minutes. I can't remember exactly, before my shoot off, because we walked literally from my field, as I was the last squad to finish, walked from my field to a different field because we were going to have the shoot offs right then. And so I sat down in a chair, just kind of mulled it over a little bit, felt sorry for myself for a brief minute, and then said, okay, you got to figure out what this was. And that's when I kind of processed and realized I had gotten too aggressive. And instead of just maintaining normal posture, which allows me to move to any target, no matter where it's at, and get a better mount and see the target better, I had gotten aggressive and pushed everything down, and it doesn't work. Not for me, not anymore. I used to be that aggressive, but I don't do it anymore. I've learned better over the years. So I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to do it, I might as well do it right now and see how it works in the shoot off. And so thankfully I slip up for the first pair. I actually have a really bad mount, but I break the pair, and I'm like, whew, that was really lucky. I do it again. I get a perfect mount, and I get a great move. My posture's correct. Everything is there, and I break the pair really well, and I'm like, ooh, that was it. That was it. We turn around and again on the third pair. 4 out of the 6 people missed targets on that third pair. So all I have to do is hit it, and I'm guaranteed that I'm in the final. So again, the low house is getting really low. It's the first pair on station 4, so you have to shoot the high house and then the low house.
So in the shoot off, are you doing a full round of skeet at that point, or is it
just pairs on 4, missing out? If you miss a target, you're out.
Oh, that is a little sporty.
Yes, very much so. And so on that third pair, we shoot it again, and I get another great mount, another great move, and I'm like, that was it. That's all it was, is that I had gotten too aggressive. And so I ended up winning the shoot off outright after a couple more pairs. So I finished in the 4th position overall because there's 3 other people that finished with qualification scores ahead of me.
Right.
So I go in with bib number 4, which means in the final, if any of those guys tie me or any of those guys tie me or beat me, I'm out. So I have to beat them. I can't tie them. I have to beat them. And as we get going in the final, my posture's good. I get rolling. I'm like, oh man, this feels good. Like I know this is exactly how I was feeling before that last round and shooting so well. And all of a sudden, these guys in position 1 and 2 start missing all kinds of targets. I mean, all kinds of targets. I never expected them to miss this many targets.
Oh, and he missed that.
And that opens the door even bigger now for Hancock.
That gives Hancock a 2-shot lead right now. And when you've only got 6 targets left, 2 shots means a lot.
And so they were the first 2 out. Bib number 1 and bib number 2, the 2 highest qualification scores, were the first 2 people out of the final. And I'm now, I only have 1 person ahead of me in bib numbers. So I'm like, okay, great. This helps me significantly. Keep rolling, and let's see if we can get this number 3 bib out too, because then I'm home free. As we get going, I dropped 1 target in the shadow of our screen that catches all the shot. I just could never see it. I mean, I literally shot it, kept following it, pulled my gun down, kept looking because I had no idea if I had broken it or not. And then I see it ding against the target fence that stops targets from flying into the other fields. And I'm like, well, guess I missed it. And I walked off. After that, got back on a roll again, and the target stayed somewhat normal. It was kind of crazy. The wind was a little bit crazy that last day. Yeah, everything kept going, and everybody kept missing targets. So I ended up with a 59 out of 60, and the guy that finished in the silver medal had a 55 out of 60. So I ended up winning by 4.
And that 59 was a record itself, isn't it?
It was, yes. It was. And I will preemptively say that Olympic record, whoever won was going to get the Olympic record because it's the first time we've ever shot that course of fire. But I've shot the actual world record is 60 out of 60. I think there's only been 3, maybe 4 of us that have shot that in the last 4 years. So
yeah, so basically you just kind of got your posture and your sort of, I guess, a bit your mental approach, kind of dial back the aggression and things sort of slotted back into place. And so this is when you sort of talked about, keeping it easy, keeping it simple. That was the solution.
It was. Yeah. When you're trying too hard and you're pushing yourself too hard, things tend to go wrong. You have to just trust yourself. Work the process that got you there in the first place. Don't try to change things in the last minute. You can temper those nerves by just doing the simple things right. And that's what I focused on for the final.
Mm-hmm. How much focus do you put on the competitors? Like, are you watching all of their shots? Like, kind of what do you do in between?
I mean, for me, I don't necessarily watch them. I only watch the person that's shooting in front of me so I can see the targets and see what they're doing, to see if the wind is affecting them or whatever it may be doing. But I mean, I would be lying if I said that I didn't know where some of them were targets wise, dropping targets. I don't really care how far they are behind, just as long as they're behind. And so I'm kind of constantly hoping, hey, give me at least one target to work with. Miss another target. Give me something else here. And I'm just trying to focus on doing my best. If you don't miss, then you can't be beat. So I'm always trying to hit every single target I can.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about your gun. What kind of shotgun do you use?
So for the last 4 years, so May of 2017, I've been using the Beretta DT11 Black. With that, it's a carbon fiber rib. So I used to shoot a 28-inch barrel. Mm-hmm. Because of the DT11 Black having a carbon fiber rib, I was able to go out to a 30-inch barrel and have the exact same weight barrels that I did before on the 28-inch. So I gained 2 inches of sight picture, which has helped tremendously on my pairs out in the center of the field. But I also didn't lose any weight, or I didn't gain any weight. So it allowed me to keep the movement patterns and the speed that I had before too. Now, I can't tell you enough just how awesome it was to be able to go to a little bit longer gun and not have to suffer because of the weight. Especially in International Skeet, you have to be able to be fast. And we just don't have the time. For example, when the target comes out on the high house and I pull the trigger the first time, it's less than 3/4 of a second. And then my transition from target 1 to target 2 on pairs is less than half a second. Everything happens so quickly that you have to get the gun moving, stopped, and then moving again and matching the speed of the targets on both times, all within that second and a quarter.
And what about the butt? You've got, it's a very ergonomically tailored to you stock. Talk about that a little bit.
It's a custom stock. It's mostly I got it for the grip. It's a pistol grip, like a true Olympic pistol grip. That it's got my finger grooves slotted into it. I mean, it took us about 3.5 hours to make this thing. I was in Germany. The name of the company is called Ergosign. And so I was in Munich back in 2011 getting this thing made. And we started out with just like a medium-sized grip. I got just a normal size hand for my size. And he had his woodworking tools. He had Bondo out, and we just went to work. And we would put in the Bondo to fill in all the low places to build up around the fingers, and then put my hand in there for a little while. And then he would actually spray my hand with oil. We'd put my hand in there for a little while, pull my hand back off, and we'd see where it was high at, where it was low at. He'd take his woodworking tools, grind out the high spots, fill in the low spots with the Bondo, and do it again. It was a really cool process. But it's turned out to be the best thing that I could have asked for, because my hand goes in the same spot every single time. And with us having to mount to the target on each one, not getting to pre-mount, we need all of the errors that could potentially be there. We need out of the equation. And if your hand is on a normal neck of a gun, if your hand is normally here, and for whatever instance you get it up to here the next time, guess what happens? That moves it down in your shoulder. If you get it lower on the grip, it's going to move it higher on your shoulder, which changes the way it fits in your face, which changes the position of your eye, which your eye is the rear sight. So you need to have everything the exact same or as close to perfect as possible every time to get the desired outcome every time.
Is there anything special about the shot shells that you guys use?
So I shoot the Federal Premium Ammunition, gold medal grands, the papers. I remember shooting them for the first time when I was in the military, and I thought to myself, like, it doesn't get any better than this. It smells amazing. They break targets really hard.
Is it just that the pattern's tighter on it?
It's not that it's any tighter. It's just that we have hardly any flyers. The core of the pattern holds so well that when you put a full pattern on a target, it's gone. And
that is kind of fascinating. That I'm a competitive rifle shooter. I'm a long range rifle shooter. Obviously, geeking out over every little bit of minutia in our hand loads is kind of key. But in the shot shell side of the equation, we tend not to give it as much thought or respect. Frankly, the process of putting those things together. And so it's cool to kind of think about a shell that's extremely technically advanced, but using sort of a very traditional construction, though, right?
It is. I mean, they told me that it's essentially the same setup that they've had since the 20s as far as the hull goes. And so, about 100 years worth of experience in building that one type of shell.
Yeah, no, they've got that curing process for the paper, I think, is the big time suck. It's almost like it's like, sticking scotch in a barrel. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And just for guys who don't know much about, the sport, what's the difference? Describe the difference between international skeet and sort of the skeet that guys might experience at their gun club.
So the local skeet that you're going to find here in the U.S., that you're going to find typically over in the U.K. and Australia and places like that, that's American skeet. First of all, our targets are different. The American skeet targets are 108 millimeters wide, and I don't remember how tall they are, but they've got a pretty good dome on them. On the international targets, we're 110 millimeters, so 108 versus 110, you can barely tell the difference, but we are significantly less domed. So what happens is the target doesn't catch as much air, and it doesn't float as well, so you have to drive it faster. And I can't remember what the exact distance on American skeet targets are. Just say it's 60 yards. My targets are traveling 69 meters. So it's, 75, something like that, yards. It's a significant amount further. You're already having to throw the target harder to get to the distance. So our targets are traveling a lot faster than the typical American skeet. And then on the sequence, on American skeet, say station 1 is a high house single, low house single, and a pair. And then station 2 is the same, but station 3, 4, and 5, you only get singles, a single high and a single low. And then it goes back over to adding pairs on 6 and 7. In international, we have pairs on every station from 1 through 7. And we have 2 pairs on station 4. So everything is stacked against us. They take all of our easiest singles out, that would be an American, and they add those to pairs on the hardest stations, on targets that are way faster, that are shorter and harder to see, because they're all orange. They don't have hardly any black on them, so you don't get as good of a transition there. Then we're having to mount the gun. So like an American skeet, you get to start with the gun on your shoulder. You get to have your head on the gun. You get prepared, everything else, and you call pull. And as soon as you call pull an American skeet, it comes out. In international, we have a line that's basically at the top of our hip bone. So kind of like where your belly button's at. And the bottom of our stock has to touch that line. So we're several inches down, over a foot down below our shoulder where we're going to be mounting to. And then when we call pull, it can come out instantly or anytime up to 3 seconds. So we never truly know when the targets are going to come out. Now, adding all of this together, we're the most mechanically challenging sport in all of shooting.
Whoa. And there it is, a record 3rd Olympic gold in men's skeet.
This episode of the Outdoor Life podcast was hosted by shooting editor John Snow. This podcast is edited and produced by Senior Deputy Editor Natalie Krebs. Broadcast clips are excerpts from NBC Sports, the International Olympic Committee, and the International Shooting Sport Federation.